I am Liffey and welcome to another planty video. We're doing another in the Art Meets Plant series today, but this one is actually about colour theory, which really excites me. I know it's quite nerdy, but it's my jam. So in a past life, I used to be an art teacher. I feel like this is my, who is it, Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus? I feel like this is my Miss Frizzle outfit, but it feels appropriate for today's video. So I just wanted to share with you the very basics of colour theory and how you can apply that to styling your plants. So in terms of the pots that you put them in, or even like the wall colour that you have behind them. Yeah, so that's pretty much the idea behind this video, is just sort of like intro to colour theory and how you can apply that in terms of plants. So I'm sure most of you will have seen a colour wheel before. The modern colour wheel, as we know it now, was not the first colour wheel. The very first colour wheel was put together by Sir Isaac Newton in 1666. I'll put a little example up of what his colour wheel was. So you can see it's not like an equal distribution of colour around the spectrum, but that was the very first colour wheel. We've sort of developed on it since then to reach our modern understanding of colour, but he was the guy who put it all together for us, so thank you. So you also might hear people talking about hues. A hue is actually just a name for a pure pigment, so it's just a fancy word for colour. So if I sort of switch out between colour and hue, they're the same thing. I mostly talk about colour though, but sometimes it like snaps in. So if that happens, a hue is a colour. It's just the purest form of a colour. Guys, I hope you don't mind birds. I went a bit ham with putting bird food and bird feeders and stuff in the garden, and now we basically just have an entire menagerie. Hello! So the first colours you'll need to know about are primary colours. So primary colours are red, yellow and blue. These are colours that cannot be mixed ever. They are the purest form of pigments, the purest hues. No matter what you do, you cannot mix them. So that's why when you're painting and you can't buy loads of colours, literally just buy yellow, red and blue and you'll be able to make all other colours from those colours. They're like the big boss colours, basically. It's really cool. So those are your primaries. So then we have secondary colours. Secondary colours are the colours that you get if you mix your primary colours together. So your secondaries are green, purple and orange. Green, obviously, if you mix blue and yellow. Purple, if you mix blue and red. And orange, if you mix red and yellow. So those are your secondary colours if your primaries are mixed with one of each other. So then we have our tertiary colours, and tertiary colours are when you mix a primary colour with a secondary colour, and you'll end up with names like red, yellow, blue, green. They're kind of like the in-between colours on the colour wheel. So if you have, in fact, I'll put one up, that makes it easier. So if you have red, yellow, well, red, orange, yellow, green, the ones sort of like between the pure hues or the pure colours, those are your tertiary colours. You probably call them like turquoise or coral. That would be your tertiary colour. So you're mixing a secondary and a primary colour together. So the next part would be tints, tones and shades. And the simplest way of thinking of what a tint, tone and shade is think about colour strips when you go and buy paint from like a hardware store or whatever, and you get those strips and then it goes from one colour and it gets darker or lighter. That's a perfect example of either a tint, a tone or a shade. So breaking it up, basically a tint is where you take a hue or a colour and you add white. So the more white you add, the lighter it gets, and that is a tint of a colour. A shade of a colour is where you take your original colour and you add black. So obviously it will get darker. The wall behind me is a nice example of a green that is a really deep shade of green. Then the last one is a tone, and a tone is where you add grey to a hue or a colour. And this will give you a much softer gradient of colour. So I'll have put up the examples, but I'll put them all up together. So the top one will be a tint where you just add white, and you can see it lightens it nicely, but it's sort of a more harsh lightening. The middle one will be a shade, that's where you add black, and that gives you really deep, rich colours as you go down the spectrum. And the last one will be a tone, and that's where you add grey, and grey is a real lightening, but also a softening of a colour. So those are tints, tones and shades of colours or hues. And that's really helpful to use when you're planning a room. If you want something really chill, then you can kind of stick on either like the tint, the tone or the shade of a colour, and it kind of gives you something that's like nice and works together. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is colour harmony. And I guess the tints, tones and shades could kind of fall into this because you can use them to create a nice colour scheme, but these are more sort of like commonly known, used ways of putting colours together to create colour schemes that scientifically work. So the first one is complementary colours. And complementary colours in a nutshell are colours that are directly opposite each other on the colour wheel. So the most common ones, the easiest ones to use will be red and green, blue and orange, and yellow and purple. Those are directly opposite each other on the colour wheel, which means that they are as different as they could possibly be in terms of the spectrum, and means that they make each other pop. So if you put purple next to yellow, it's going to make the purple look more purple and the yellow look more yellow. It's just a scientific way that light bouncing off of stuff works. So if you want a really bold, bright color scheme, you use complementary colors. It's used a lot in advertising because it's very eye-catching and poppy and like exciting. So complementary colors are colors directly opposite each other on the color wheel. They don't necessarily need to be primaries and secondaries. They can be your tertiaries. So whatever is opposite a turquoise will probably be like a corally color. But you'll find that whatever is directly opposite each other will make each other pop. So that's a complementary color. The next one is harmonious colors. I think it's also called analogous colors. I call it a harmonious color scheme. And these are colors that sit next to each other on the color wheel. So again, doesn't matter where you start, doesn't matter which direction you go, clockwise, anti-clockwise. So long as they are sitting directly next to each other on the color wheel, you know that that's going to create a harmonious color scheme. These tend to be sort of gentler, softer, but also interesting because you're not just sticking with one tint, tone or shade of a color. So another color scheme is something called a triadic color scheme, and this is where 3 colors are equally spaced sort of in a triangle on the color wheel, and this creates both a bold but also harmonious scheme. So I'll put up an example here of a triadic color scheme, but these are used quite a lot in advertising as well, just because they're quite poppy but still like a bit more subtle than just using complementary colors. So if you want to use something with 3 colors in, this would be a really nice one to do. It's kind of very bold and dramatic. I don't know, this may be a triadic color scheme, possibly. I don't know. I don't have a color wheel in front of me to tell you. But triadic is really, really cool, just because of the fact that you're utilizing 3 completely different colors, but they're still balanced on where they sit in the spectrum. Then the last ones are warm and cool colors. Basically, warm colors and cool colors are harmonious color schemes because they're next to each other on the color wheel, but your warm colors are your reds, your oranges and your yellows, and your cool colors are your blues, your greens and your purples. So that can kind of like help you if you're wanting to create a very distinct look somewhere, is to just utilize warm colors or just utilize cool colors. So those are your basic color schemes and your basic color theory. And just a quick thing of how you would apply it to a plant, Ludicea discolor. This guy has pink veining on his leaves, as you can see. Oh, Misty's decided to eat. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. It's the exact same color as the pot. So I decided to pull a color from my plant, match it to the pot, and that helps to create a sense of harmony, but also helps the pinks pop. But we have more examples. I shall wait for Misty to stop eating first though. So I have badly put together a thing here just to kind of show you how a different color pot can really look different on your plant. So here we have Misty and a Monstera. This is just in a neutral pot. Doesn't really do much to bring out or contrast the color. Whites and blacks tend to be neutrals in terms of decorating most of the time. Don't come at me if you don't agree. From a theoretical standpoint, it's true. But you can see if I put it in this green pot, that would be a harmonious color scheme or a shade. So this is a darker shade of green to the green of the leaves. And that's very gentle, subtle blends in. Whereas, I've got to remember what colors I did now. I did examples here. Okay, there we go, boom. Red. If you were to put it in a red pot, red and green are complementary colors, so they're directly opposite each other on the color spectrum, which means that they're going to make each other pop. So the green now really looks super vibrant of the leaves, and the red pot also looks super vibrant. They're kind of playing off of each other and making each other look really dramatic. Something completely different if you put it in a blue pot. So this would be utilizing cool colors or a harmonious color scheme, because blue and green are next to each other on the color wheel, but they're also cool colors. So it gives you a completely different vibe. So you can see based off of the color pot that you put your plant in, it looks completely different, and you can utilize the science of color to help you, whether you're wanting something really calm and subtle or something really dramatic. And just knowing a little bit of color theory can really help with that. I like color, can you tell? Anyway, so that is Colour Theory 101 basically. If you'd like to ask me any questions about colour or styling, whatever, in the comments below, please do. I would love to talk to you about it. That would be amazing. Or you can talk to me on Instagram at leafy.greenfingers. I'm going to be doing more of these, not necessarily in terms of colour. I'm thinking like contrast, texture, things like that. So we're going to be moving through plant styling in terms of the elements and principles of art to help. But in the meantime, you can chat in the comments, hit me up on Instagram at leafy.greenfingers. If you've subscribed to the channel already, thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, the link will pop up now for you. Misty and I would love to have you here. But thank you so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys again for another planty video. Stay safe out there, be kind to everyone, and I will see you guys soon. Bye guys.